Okay, Splunk as simple as possible. So this is going to be Module 1, talking about what Splunk is. A little bit of background is I've been in the IT industry for 10 years, and I remember I took a boot camp early in my career to obtain a certification, well-known industry certification. And essentially in the boot camp, we didn't learn much. We just memorized information and basically regurgitated that on the test. And my recall is about 0% of what I learned. So I wanted to make some training to avoid a situation like that for you guys. And I really wanted to make some training where I break down technical concepts in really understandable language. And I figured if I make it simple enough for the layperson, then people like you and I who work in the industry will be able to grasp these ideas that much faster, because in our industry it's very important that we learn new concepts quickly because our industry changes so fast. So let's get into this. So this video will explain very simply what Splunk is. We'll start out with that. That's the foundation of our pyramid there. Then we'll talk about some of the practical uses in the real world for Splunk. That's our next level of the pyramid. And then we'll end with some general questions that are often heard about Splunk. So what is Splunk? Well, you may have seen Splunk mentioned on a chat board, or you may have overheard some coworkers talking about it. People will often ask what my job is, and I tell them I'm a Splunk administrator. And when I say Splunk, people's first question naturally is, well, what's Splunk? That's a fair question. So let's get into that. So at the most basic level, Splunk is just an event log collector. It centralizes event log storage for later referral, because you might want to look at these logs later. So what's an event log, though? Let's back up a little bit. Let's clear some things up about what event logs are, because I've heard people in the industry use the terms events and logs interchangeably, and that's technically not correct. And we want to get you started off on the right foot. So let's start with some simple but very important definitions to really help us build our knowledge from the ground up. So an event is an occurrence of some importance. It's something that happened. It's something that you may want to write down because you may need to refer to it later. Quick example, we have a timeline here. And event 1, at 6 a.m., a bank safe was opened, and then event 2, at 5 p.m., a bank safe was closed. Now, both of these are important occurrences that you need to log because you may need to review them at a later date. So an event is an occurrence of some importance, and a log is a collection of related events. So you see here in this example, put in the format of a picture, the log collects events 1, 2, and 3 and puts them in a central location. So let's look at some real-world examples here. So the first example is going to be of a company safe. So we see here on the third row, event 1 on the 21st of January 2019 at 8:35 in the morning, Bob opened a safe. And then we see event 2 on the 21st of January, so the same day, at 5 o'clock, Jill closed the safe. Let's take a look at another example. This is going to be an example of a captain's log, so events surrounding a specific ship. So we see here on the third row, event 1 on the 16th of May 2016 at 11 o'clock, Captain Smith, he recorded a port arrival to Seattle. And then we see event 2 on the 18th of May 2016, so 2 days later at 11:45 in the morning, Captain Smith recorded a port departure from Seattle. Let's take a look at a third example. Now this is going to be an example of an equipment log. So this is going to record equipment sign in and sign out events. So we look here in the third row again. On the 10th of February 2018 at 8 a.m., a multimeter was signed out by Robert. And then we see on the fourth row, event 2, 2 days later, 12th February 2018 at 12 o'clock, a multimeter was signed in by Robert. So he returned the multimeter 2 days later. So why are we belaboring the idea of events? Well, the problem is that Splunk becomes complicated very fast, and we really need a good grasp of the basics because that'll help us bring a lot of clarity later. So to sum it up, no matter how it's recorded, an event log is simply a collection of events. Okay, how is this related to Splunk? Well, if an event log collects events, so Splunk collects event logs, making it an event log aggregator or collector, whichever word you want to use. So let's clarify something. Splunk is actually fed a copy of those event logs, and this is fantastic, and we'll go into why that's fantastic later. But just bear in mind that Splunk doesn't actually grab those logs and delete them from their source. It just collects a copy. Okay, let's talk about practical usage. Why is Splunk useful? Well, let's say you wanted to store all 3 of those previously discussed event logs in one spot. Well, you could do that with Splunk. But that would be kind of silly, wouldn't it? Because a company safe event log, a captain's event log, and equipment event logs are not related to each other in any way. There's no context. Only a company manager is typically interested in the safe event log. Only a captain of a ship and some related personnel are interested in the captain's event log. And really only an equipment coordinator is interested in an equipment event log in case any company equipment goes missing, right? So we'll flip over to the IT world and pretend you're a system administrator for a small network. You can put your firewall event log, your router event log, and your laptop event logs all in Splunk. And they all have the same context because they all belong to the same network. So Splunk can be used to store all of these. So that breaks down what Splunk is. And that covers the foundation of our pyramid here. So let's look at some practical uses for Splunk. So there's more than 3 practical uses in the IT world for Splunk, but these are some general reasons why people in the industry use it. Number 1, it's a single pane of glass, which is an industry term for consolidation, basically. What people mean when they say a single pane of glass, if you've heard that term thrown around, is basically it's one window into all of the event logs flying around your network. Number 2, it makes event correlation a lot easier because it's consolidated, of course. So we'll go into what event correlation is, but just for now, keep in mind that event correlation is simply relating events from different event logs together. And then number 3, it gives us the opportunity to save on memory storage cost, and it makes archiving really easy. Now we'll go into each of these reasons one at a time. So the single pane of glass or consolidation, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's say you want to view event logs on a laptop. Okay, so you sign into the laptop, you read the event logs, you write down what you find important or you think you'll need to refer to later, and then you log off. And then let's say you want to view the event logs in a router. So you sign into your router, you review those event logs, you write down what you think is important, and then you sign out. Let's say you want to see the event logs in your firewall now. So you sign into your firewall, you review the event logs, You write down what you find important or what you think will be important, and then you log off. But this is a big pain, and it's very time consuming because remember, you also have to have a username and password for each of these pieces of hardware. So to make it easier, we'll just use Splunk. We'll just forward or copy all of those event logs to Splunk. So we'll send event logs from your firewall, from your router, from your laptop, send them all to Splunk, and then we'll just log into Splunk with one username and password. Way easier, isn't it? So that covers a single pane of glass. And obviously, consolidation is going to make viewing all the event logs for your network a lot easier. Now let's talk about event correlation. Correlation is simply assembling related events to create a picture of activity. That means relating all event logs together to create a story. Now you relate all event logs together via a common value, and that common value acts as the glue that holds all those events together, even though they're from different event logs. So let's talk about finding a common value for correlation. So to correlate events from different event logs, you must choose a value found in each of those event logs. You must find a common value. These fields can be a username like Bob Smith, it can be an IP address, it can be a MAC address, and then a super common one is time. So we'll correlate event logs based on time because one event happened right after the other. So the key is the value has to exist in all of the event logs that you wish to correlate. Let's take a look at some real-world examples. So let's say somebody signed into a laptop, communicated through your router, then through your firewall to reach the internet. And now you want to review those event logs and confirm the activity. Now remember, like we just talked about, Splunk gives you that single pane of glass for these logs, so it's going to be a lot easier now. Right? So now you can correlate or tie all that activity together. And we'll use two values found in all three event logs, and those values will be for time and username. So let's dig deeper. So from the laptop event logs, we see that at 11:40, the user Bob logged in. And then from the router event logs, we see that 11:41, a minute later, the user Bob performed a web page request out to a website. Then also at 11:41, because these events take place quickly one after the other, the user Bob, we saw his web page request go through our firewall in the outbound direction. So now we've correlated three events from three event log sources. And we've used the values Bob and 11:40 or 11:41 to obtain that picture of activity. Okay, how about another example? Let's say that but you suspect anyway that somebody hacked your laptop, and now you want to trace that connection back. Okay, let's say you suspect that somebody came through your firewall, then through your router, got into your laptop to steal some data. You want to verify that this actually happened. So let's correlate or tie all this activity together. And we'll do it by two values common to all three event logs. And those values will be the time, which is around 8:50, and the malicious IP address, which we'll just call malicious IP or bad IP. Let's take a look. So from the laptop event logs, we see at 8:51 in the morning, a malicious IP address performed a remote login to our laptop. And then we see in the router event logs at 8:50, so a minute earlier, a malicious IP address performed a laptop IP request from your router. Then we see from a firewall event log that 8:49 So a minute earlier than the router event, the malicious IP address performed a laptop IP request in the inbound direction. So let's not get caught up on the underlying technology and how that works. Try to focus on the fact that we are using common values to correlate activity from 3 different pieces of hardware together: the laptop, the router, and the firewall. That's the important thing we want to focus on here. So you see here that again we've correlated 3 events from 3 different event logs using those common values. So that covers event correlation. Now let's take a quick look at memory storage savings and archival. So once event logs are copied to Splunk, then they can be deleted from the firewall, the router, and the laptops. And this way you only store them in Splunk. And that saves on storage space on each piece of hardware because you don't have to store those logs on that hardware anymore. But not only that, when it comes time to delete old logs or to put old event logs in long-term storage, Splunk gives you one place to pull those logs from. You see the term compressed logs on the right-hand side there because a lot of times when these logs are put into long-term storage, in fact, I would say 100% of the time, they are compressed to save space. If you don't know what compressing a file or an event log is, it's basically, think of it as, you have those space-saving storage bags that you put old blankets or old clothes in, and then you hook up your vacuum cleaner and it sucks all that air out. Well, that's what compression of files is. Basically, you're just squeezing those files down in size so you can fit a lot more of them on the hardware. Okay, so that covers the 3 main practical uses for Splunk: consolidation, event correlation, and memory storage savings and archival. So that breaks down for us what Splunk is, and we also went over what some practical uses are for Splunk in an enterprise network. So finally, let's discuss some frequently asked questions about Splunk. So one common question is, what kind of devices can send event logs to Splunk? Well, generally, you're only limited to devices that communicate via IP. So all of these: laptops, phones, servers, routers, switches, IP cameras, IP thermostats, they can all send their event logs to Splunk. I even read a blog where one guy set up an IP camera in his refrigerator because all of the pickles kept disappearing from the refrigerator and he wanted to find out which kid was eating all the pickles. So how much does Splunk cost? Well, it's free. The best price of all. So limitations with the free version, though, you're limited to 500 megabytes a day ingestion. There's no authentication or clustering capabilities in the free version. However, for probably 99% of home networks, the free version will work just fine. The upside for Splunk to give you this software for free is that they're hoping that you'll use it on your home network, get comfortable with it, get used to it, and then that will result in you wanting to utilize that software at your place of employment too, and hopefully they'll make a sale of a Splunk license out of that. So it's like a try before you buy sort of a thing, just on a smaller scale. Okay, another common question: where do I get it? Well, easy enough, Splunk.com. All you got to do is sign up for an account, and then they have versions available for Windows and Linux, and you simply just choose your version after you create an account and log in, and you can download the software from there. So now you have a good idea about what Splunk is, some practical uses for it, and we've answered some frequently asked questions about Splunk. So thanks for your time. If you found this video useful, please share it with someone else who you think will benefit, and take care. See you next video.